join the United States because there are more economic opportunities. So in the long term, I don't see Canada staying together. I think Canada will ultimately be dismembered by the United States and be absorbed into the American empire in the next 20, 30 years. I don't think Canada right now can be a sustainable nation. Now, it's really easy to blame immigrants for all of this. And most Canadians do, in fact, blame immigrants because that's what they encounter every day. They encounter immigrants not being able to speak English, not following the rules, cutting in line. They watch the news and see immigrants committing crimes. They see immigrants, rich immigrants, buying up these expensive property and making life miserable for everyone. So it's really easy to blame the immigrants. But ultimately, we need to understand why this immigration is happening. And it's happening because of the baby boomers. The baby boomers want three things. They want their pensions to be paid. They want quality, free healthcare. And they want the property prices to go up. Basically, they want the Canadian economy to keep on growing and growing and growing, regardless of the consequences. Now, in order for the economy to grow, there are three main mechanisms to accomplish this.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this video. So today I'm going to be talking about the sad reality that Canada as a nation state is probably cooked and not going to survive more than another 20, 30 years at most before being absorbed by the United States. And I would also like to suggest that people should maybe direct their anger in certain places instead of others, because a lot of people are definitely upset about what's happening, and they also understand that because of the huge immigration numbers that we have now and everything else going on, that this country is in big trouble. And so anti-immigrant sentiment is going up, and there's a lot of anti-Semitic conspiracies on the right that I don't know how they continue to exist, considering they're so easy to dispel. But anyway, I have already made videos on this channel trying to explain to a lot of people the reality of state capitalism that we live under here in Canada and in North America, and also the reality of the Anglo-American Empire, which we are a part of, which is the top of the hierarchy globally, not by merit, but by military dominance that we enforce on everyone else. So those are some realities people have to just generally understand before they really get into politics. But now I would also like to suggest that a huge part of what's screwed up Canada with our mass immigration and everything is really our own fault again, our own system, and it's really the fault of the baby boomer generation. And this has always been a pyramid scheme, and my generation, millennials and everyone else in it, are caught up in this generational pyramid scheme, which is mostly about pensions and providing entitled luxurious lives for that generation, which will be the longest living generation in history. The life expectancy for millennials is actually shorter than boomers, since our entire society is in decline. And so I would like to suggest, before people start scapegoating Jews and immigrants, that they actually acknowledge state capitalism and how our system works, and the fact that baby boomers basically live forever, and that there's a huge amount of wealth that is just completely stagnant and trapped with the baby boomer generation, who are elderly people, which have a huge disproportionate amount of wealth and power, and they're going to live forever, and it causes problems for society broadly. A lot of you are probably familiar with the Mouse Utopia experiments of John Calhoun. If you know much about that, or you take anything away from that, one of the issues is that when you have a society where everyone's basic needs are met, but there are social hierarchies locked in place where younger mammals can never fulfill their potential or rise in status, then it causes a lot of problems, and their energy has to go somewhere, right? And it also causes colony collapse. You can also look at Western history. I would argue this has happened time and time again. There's a lot of really intelligent historians that can lay this out, but basically, like, even the Peloponnesian War and Greece and Troy fighting really is about the fact that wealth was all bottlenecked up with older generations, and younger people just had all this energy that needed to expel. So there's a lot of problems that are inherent with the capitalist system that we're experiencing, and people don't understand them, and they do definitely don't want to. This is something that's definitely true for white people generally, and white conservatives the most. Like, they don't want to acknowledge that their own system sold them out, or their own elites are selling them out. They can't acknowledge that. On some level, it's just too painful psychologically, so they have to lash out. And it's always a Jewish conspiracy in their minds in some way, even though Jews are not controlling global finance or the media, and they're not. We can break down the conspiracies in many ways, but those things propagate on the internet because they're astroturfed by right-wing think tanks, and they're endorsed by people who don't have real education and have a bias against education because of the manufactured culture war and blah blah blah. But really, what we need to understand is our system of global capitalism is to blame. And I understand being frustrated with immigrants in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of badly behaved people here now. Like, what can we say? But we also have to remember that our system is bringing these people in as slave labor to keep this pyramid scheme going. So it makes no sense to lash out at these people instead of acknowledge that we've been sold out by this entire system. The whole thing is a grift, and it's basically what I want people to reflect on. And if you think I'm wrong, I want people to leave comments and try to elaborate a bit. Don't just leave some random insult that doesn't say anything, because then you're just going to prove my point that nobody has any counterpoints to anything I'm saying. And I have friends who are deeply convinced of this conspiracy that Jewish people have funded all this terrible cultural Marxist media, mainstream media and films and Hollywood and everything, to basically destabilize the West for a demographic replacement against white people. That's they're firmly entrenched in this belief, which is way too complex and giving way too much credit to too many people, instead of just understanding these really natural phenomenon that are going. And I just think it's just lazy thinking, and to blame immigrants. And it's also, this is going to be a theme that I want to build on in other videos going forward. Most of what goes on with there's just so much narcissism in our culture. There's narcissism on the left for sure, but a lot of right-wing thinking is just fundamentally narcissistic, because it comes from this assumption, this one-dimensional, basically a non-metacognitive mind that just assumes that it and rationalizes the fact that it always has to be right or the best or something, instead of just acknowledge that it's not. Narcissism is a huge part of our culture, and you should really learn about it and study it as a phenomenon before you get into politics broadly, because then you will see things with a whole different shade. And you'll understand, you'll look at, if you develop a nuanced understanding of narcissism, especially malignant narcissism, when you look at somebody like Donald Trump, you'll instantly understand what's going on. You won't be susceptible to any of his rhetoric or anything like that, and that's true for many types of people in life. So anyway, the problems really require reforming our entire economic system, and that's almost impossible now in the West, especially since religion and capitalism have co-evolved to justify one another, which is a whole nother headache. These are just things I'm trying to explain again for why people should really think more critically about the system here instead of just lash out at these people. I'm saying this also as somebody who really struggles in the job market, especially now that they're outsourcing all of the local work around here. I live in Toronto, to immigrants, right? But I'm not mad at the immigrants. If anything, I'm just mad at the system that exploits all of us. You should really feel solidarity with a lot of these immigrants because they're working class. I'm trying to get people to develop a class consciousness here, figure this out. A lot of these people, you've just been trained because of these false identity markers that you've embraced so deeply to see these people as the other. But really, we're all one family, and we're all united by class. We're all exploited by these rich assholes, basically, because at this point we also live in a culture of insane greed. There's nothing wrong with inequality in a society, but extreme inequality is problematic for many reasons, just because we're an evolved social ape. I can elaborate on that in another video, but trust me, it's a problem. So I think that's all I wanted to say today, but I would love somebody to challenge my ideas with some points that I can also respond to in another video. So I'll end this video today probably with a clip of someone else just providing some basic facts, and I hope I see you guys in the next video.
Take cash into the economy. Let's let in poor immigrants so that they work as slave labor for Canadian corporations. So of these three solutions, the Canadian government went with the third solution, increase immigration. Now, a lot of people out there believe that this is a conspiracy, that there's this global international conspiracy out there to dilute national identity, to destroy the idea of the nation state, to reduce the white gene pool. This is all a World Economic Forum white replacement theory conspiracy spearheaded by the Jews. And quite honestly, if the people in charge were this smart, were this well organized, the world wouldn't be in the mess that it is today.